Hello and welcome to another TLDR EU video. The likes of Google, Amazon, Apple and Facebook undoubtedly deserve the titles as tech giants. They control or otherwise underpin more or less every single aspect of our digital lives, from online shopping to the phones we're ever more glued to this very channel hosted on Google's platform. The issue is that for some, the sheer power they have is far too much to sit idly by. For some, the fact they have their fingers in so many interlinked pies means that action must be taken, something the European Union agrees with. So in this video, we'll take a look at why big tech is under attack from the EU. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel for even more European news. We also have channels dedicated to the UK and US, as well as a daily news channel where we discuss a variety of news topics in a few minutes in the Daily Briefing News Summary. In fact, speaking of big tech, we even discuss Google's major server outage in the latest episode. Anyway, be sure to subscribe and you can find all of those channels linked in the description. To say that the European Union and big tech haven't always seen eye to eye is quite a significant understatement. We ultimately have to remember that it was the European Union that implemented some of the strictest privacy rules in the world, with the General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR, which put quite a significant burden at the time on all companies, no matter how big or small, including TLDR. Then in 2017, the European Commission shifted things up a gear and started directly targeting the tech giants, going as far as to fine Google €2.42 billion for breaching EU antitrust rules, having abused its market dominance as a search engine by giving an illegal advantage to another Google product, its comparison shopping service. But things are now picking up even more steam, with the European Commission, in the eyes of some, declaring war on big tech through the Digital Services Act and the Digital Markets Act, which, as the name suggests, targets the provision of services and the wider market for those services, respectively. The Digital Services Act seeks to bolster up protections when it comes to taking down illegal content or counterfeit goods, explicitly drawing the line where responsibility lies for platforms. As we've covered on this channel quite a few times before, only the likes of Germany have an explicit requirement and obligation placed on the tech giants to take down illegal content rapidly. For the vast majority of other EU member states, the platforms are typically only advised or encouraged to do so on a voluntary basis. All in all, leading to a threat of a fragmented rule set throughout the European Union. It must be stressed, however, the EU is not seeking to remove the limited liability that companies have for content published on their platforms, something people are discussing in the US surrounding Section 230. The Act is also, according to an early draft, expected to force big tech companies to share data with potential competitors, with a draft stating that the big tech firms shall not use data collected on the platform for their own commercial activities, unless they make it accessible to business users active in the same commercial activities. The Digital Markets Act focuses more on the competition side of things and tackling the power that so-called gatekeepers have. Anyone with an Android or Apple phone knows exactly what the EU is targeting here. Android phones will push you to use Google as the default search engine, Drive for search, Docs for word processing, etc. On the Apple front, iPhones push you to use iCloud for, well, more or less everything, from the backup of photos to emails. This immense amount of control of their respective marketplaces at the hands of the gatekeepers worries some of these regulators, because it potentially and severely disadvantages smaller competitors, and may also be quite profoundly impairing of innovation. In economics lingo, the regulator's argument is that the concentration of market power is creating an artificial monopoly with huge barriers to entry. These acts, taken together, are designed to set out a list of rules to remove the arbitrary nature of proceedings. Gone are the days of the regulator having to launch long, costly investigation to prove damage to consumers. And in comes a clear set of illegal market activities, a clear set of rules about what is and what is not allowed in 4 key service areas. Online intermediation services, which is fancy legal speak for anything connecting you to a service, so app stores or social networks, online search engines, operating systems, and cloud services. A clear set of rules that, if seen to be broken by the European regulator, would activate a sliding scale of penalties, up to including the separation of some operations. The status quo of having to launch tiresome, complex legal investigations has actually been criticised by the European Court of Auditors, that's highlighted that the Commission, and by extension European Union, lacks the legal muscle to properly restrain and control big tech firms. So the new rules are designed to be asymmetric, in that they disproportionately impact large companies first and foremost. And that makes sense, because the rules aren't meant to bring in new barriers for smaller companies, but rather knock them down. In a leaked document seen by the Financial Times, it stresses that asymmetric rules will ensure that smaller emerging competitors are boosted, helping competitiveness, innovation and investment in digital services, while targeting specific harms emerging from large platforms. Speaking to the FT, the EU's Commissioner for the Internal Market justified the incoming rules, saying there's a certain feeling from the end users of these platforms that they're too big to care. Under certain conditions, we may also have the power to impose structural separation, a clear reference to the 2008 financial crisis, where the banks were seen as too big to fail. The view that the likes of Google, Apple, Amazon and Facebook need to be taken down a gear isn't simply restricted to the European Union. In fact, in the UK, a dedicated digital markets union is to be set up, residing under the existing market regulator, and is widely expected to have the power to impose substantial financial penalties as a final backstop, with the competition regulator urging the government to adopt a penalty cap at 10% of worldwide turnover, or in explicit terms, in the region of $7 billion for Facebook and a truly whopping $16 billion for Google. Across the Atlantic, in October, the Department of Justice, along with 11 state attorneys general, filed a civil antitrust lawsuit against Google, arguing that Google is unlawfully maintaining monopolies through anti-competitive and exclusionary practices in the search and search advertising markets. Google's chief economist has argued that Google is no monopolist. This is in spite of basically everyone using Google as their search engine, with the DOJ themselves claiming that Google controls 80% of the search market. For context, under UK law, a firm is considered a monopoly if it controls just 25% of the market. Also in October, a 16-month-long congressional investigation into Amazon, Apple, Google and Facebook in the US came to the conclusion that each does hold monopoly power, and antitrust agencies failed at key occasions to stop monopolists from rolling up their competitors, and failed to protect the American people from the abuses of monopoly power, saying that forceful agency action is critical. As the FT reports, the Big Four have gone from scrappy underdog startups to the kinds of monopolies we last saw in the era of oil barons and railroad tycoons. All in all, laying the groundwork for similar action to be taken across the Atlantic. In fact, as this script was actually being finished, the US Federal Trade Commission and 46 states also filed lawsuits against Facebook, potentially leading to the breakup of the major social network. But what do you think? Is big tech actually under attack from the EU? Or is the EU working in the best interests of their citizens? And is the US about to follow suit? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be notified every time we release a new video. Special thanks to our Patreon backers who make videos like this one possible. And if you want to see your name at the end of videos, then you too can back us on Patreon. The link to that's in the description.